We like to think of ourselves as the pinnacle of creation, built for progress and global brotherhood. But take a look at your phone. How many contacts do you have in there? 500, 1,000, 1,000? Now, be honest. How many of those people would you let into your house without hiding the silver? Back in the 90s, British anthropologist Robin Dunbar figured out that our brains are physically wired to maintain meaningful social connections with a maximum of 150 individuals. That's the famous Dunbar's number, the sweet spot for a hunter-gatherer tribe. Anything beyond that threshold is just a faceless blur to our nervous system. Our neocortex might be capable of building spaceships and trading crypto, but our limbic system is still huddled around a Paleolithic campfire, and its default settings are brutal. Those 150 people around the fire, they are your tribe, no questions asked. You protect them, you feed them. But whatever is rustling in the bushes just beyond the firelight is either a predator or a competitor for food. Evolution didn't leave room for a third option, 95. The ancient world had no concept of tolerance, mostly because welcoming tribes quickly ended up as dinner for their neighbors. This is where every war begins, not on the barricades or in politicians' offices, but deep inside the wetware of our brains. We're all crammed into a giant genetic commune, where every stranger is subconsciously flagged as a threat. Nature didn't teach us to love humanity. It taught us to survive by competing with other hairless apes. And to make sure we cling to our own with a death grip, evolution forged a chemical leash. Meet oxytocin. Glossy magazines love to call it the love hormone, the chemical of trust and warm cuddles. It floods our system during breastfeeding, orgasms, and cozy hangouts with friends. It seems like the ultimate peace molecule, doesn't it? Just pump the planet full of oxytocin, and we'll all hold hands under a giant rainbow. Not quite. When neuroscientists dug deeper and ran double-blind tests, they were horrified. It turned out this sweet cuddle chemical is actually the chief biological sponsor of xenophobia. Sure, oxytocin makes us fiercely love and protect our pack. 95. But there's a dark side to this coin. In the exact same proportion, it ramps up aggression and paranoid suspicion toward outsiders. The tighter your bond with your group, the more violently you'll tear into anyone who doesn't belong. The empathy hormone acts like a ruthless bouncer at an exclusive club. VIP treatment for the regulars, a nightstick to the face for everyone else. It's a terrifying paradox. Our deep need for intimacy, our genuine desire to belong to something warm and safe, is the very trigger for bloody conflict. We don't destroy each other because we are inherently evil. We do it because we love our own too much. But if our biology has hardwired us to hate outsiders just to keep our tribe alive, how on earth did humanity manage to build metropolises without cutting each other's throats on day one? Imagine a state where an empty fridge knocks out any constitution. People don't take up arms because they suddenly got hooked on the works of great philosophers or developed a burning desire for abstract freedom. 95. They do it when the basic math of survival stops adding up. Economists use a rather grim metric called the Gini coefficient. It measures social inequality. 0 is a utopia where everyone has an equal share. It is when one guy owns the entire country and everyone else is eating bark off the trees. The statistics are merciless. Once this index crosses the magic threshold of 45 or 50, you can smell gunpowder in the air. At this point, the chasm between the owner of a mega yacht and an ordinary working stiff is so vast that trading a boring mortgage for a damp trench suddenly looks like a viable career move. Economist Paul Collier spent years studying civil conflicts and reached an incredibly cynical conclusion. Forget noble ideals. Civil war is simply a highly profitable business venture. In a shattered economy with shuttered factories and scorched fields, a Kalashnikov becomes the most reliable vehicle for upward mobility. If you're young, angry, and your prospects are absolute zero, a piece of stamped metal with a wooden stock gives you everything, all at once. Instant street cred, steady rations, and a crystal-clear path to the top. 95. You don't need a college degree or a pitch deck for investors. You just join a local armed group that calls itself a liberation front to sound legitimate, and suddenly, you're a respected shareholder in a brutal startup. Your investment is a willingness to pull the trigger, and the dividends are paid out in other people's property. But who funds this bloody banquet? Enter the famous resource curse, the paradox of plenty. You'd think finding oil or diamonds under your feet would be the ultimate jackpot. In reality, for a poor country, it's a kiss of death. When a weak state sits on a rich vein of resources, the elites no longer need to develop technology, collect taxes, or pay attention to their own citizens. All they have to do is pump raw materials for export. The oil needle provides incredibly easy money. And where there's easy money and no rule of law, tough guys with guns are never far behind. Why build a complex economy and foster small businesses when you can just assemble a militia and seize a well? This is why the oil needle always, sooner or later, sharpens into a bayonet. The darkness. Rebels rarely want to tear down the system and build a brave new world. Most of the time, they just want to become the new C-suite at this profitable gas station. And once control of the coveted pipeline changes hands, a far more terrifying mechanism is set in motion. Because holding on to power in a country where the fridge rules supreme turns out to be a hell of a lot harder than seizing it. History textbooks love the fairy tale of spontaneous mass outrage. In it, an oppressed clerk suddenly wakes up, realizes the crushing weight of his existence, grabs a pitchfork, and marches to storm the palace. Spoiler alert. In the real world, that trick doesn't work. Pitchforks cost money, rebellion is an unaffordable luxury, and coups require colossal budgets. The average person is too busy just trying to survive. They have to feed their family, pay the mortgage, and fix the leaky faucet. They don't have the spare cash or the free hours to sew flags, rent warehouses, and map out the logistics of street protests. Every so-called people's revolution is actually the result of a fierce split at the very top. A throne cannot be shared. Power is strictly a single seat. When the economic pie starts to shrink, the state trough gets too crowded for the elites. At that point, yesterday's partners start eyeing each other like a high-calorie dinner. But respectable ministers don't step outside for a gentlemanly duel with pistols. Instead, they head down to the basement of the social pyramid, find an angry population, and carefully hand them a heavy battering ram. Imagine a massive corporation where the executives are fighting over annual bonuses. They don't throw punches in the boardroom. Instead, they go down to the factory floor, hand megaphones to the workers, and yell, "Hey, that VP in the West Wing just stole your hard-earned cash." In this cynical game, the masses are just a cheap but highly destructive tool. One faction of the elite uses the righteous fury of the crowd to physically eliminate their rivals, outsourcing the dirty work to ordinary citizens. Remember this golden rule. If you see a spontaneous protest where everyone is waving thousands of identical, professionally printed flags, it means someone very rich paid the printing bill in advance. But this creates a psychological hurdle. How do you get a peaceful school teacher to grab a piece of rebar and cave in his neighbor's skull? Just handing out cash won't cut it. A healthy psyche has a hardwired block against killing its own kind. To spark a slaughter, you need a grand cause and a mortal threat. And that's when they roll out the heavy artillery, the media propaganda machine. The technology is as old as time. It's that ancient town criers have been replaced by flat screens and social media algorithms. The recipe for creating the perfect Civil War soldier relies on total dehumanization. You can't just attack your neighbor across the hall, but you will gladly exterminate a parasite, a traitor, or a deadly virus threatening your family. Propaganda systematically strips the opponent of all human qualities. The enemy is denied the right to love, fear, compassion, or even a name. They become a faceless function, an absolute evil standing in the way of a bright future. Our brains are terrifyingly easy to hack. The right visuals, some ominous music, a couple of horrific clips taken out of context, and a narrator's hypnotic baritone can work wonders of social engineering. Before we know it, our critical thinking shuts down, yielding to the pack survival instinct. Now, we are going to dissect this mechanism down to its smallest gears. We'll understand why the public never starts a civil war on its own, and how exactly 15 minutes of airtime can turn your close buddy into a subhuman blocking the path to greatness. Imagine carrying a portable guillotine in your pocket. You pull it out dozens of times a day to decapitate someone's opinion and common sense along with it, with a single swipe. Welcome to the era of the digital civil war. People used to grab pitchforks and march to the barricades because their neighbor prayed to the wrong god or refused to pay tribute. Now, all it takes is entering the comment section of any post. We've traded muskets for smartphones, but our brain's default settings are still stuck in the Stone Age. Social media algorithms are the ultimate virtual arms dealers. They don't care which ideology wins. Their only goal is to keep you shooting at each other for as long as possible. The smart feed quickly figures out what makes you happy, but it calculates what pisses you off even faster. Joy nets the platform a single lazy like. But righteous fury gets you writing essays in the comments, losing sleep, and checking back every 5 minutes to see what your enemies replied. Hate monetizes 10 times better than boring old peace. Before we know it, we slip into echo chambers, cozy digital bunkers where everyone agrees with you. If you truly believe the Earth is flat, the algorithm will lovingly feed you millions of like-minded souls and hide all the astrophysicists. As a result, objective reality splinters into isolated bubbles. You look at a political opponent and genuinely don't understand how anyone can be so detached from reality. And they look at you thinking the exact same thing. Constructive dialogue becomes impossible. You live in parallel information universes, even though you might be standing in the same line for your morning coffee. Think this is a unique 21st century problem? Think again. The darkness. Historical patterns haven't gone anywhere. The invention of the printing press triggered a bloody slaughter across Europe because people suddenly gained the power to mass-produce propaganda. In the 90s, radio became the chief catalyst for the horrific genocide in Rwanda. Technology has always acted as a powerful amplifier for human vices. The only difference is that while it used to take years to destabilize a society, today social polarization spreads across the globe at 5G speeds. We are used to thinking of civil war as a terrible mistake, a tragic system failure of the state. But the harsh truth is that it's a fundamental feature of human society. Our species evolved to survive solely by drawing a hard line between us and them. It's just that them used to be a guy from the neighboring tribe wearing a leopard skin, and now it's someone with a different profile picture. We gleefully step on the exact same historical rake, only this time it features a gorgeous modern interface, smooth animations, and a stylish dark mode. This begs a highly uncomfortable question. If corporations profit from pitting us against each other, and our own ancient brains eagerly play along, does humanity stand a chance of breaking this vicious cycle? Or are we doomed to spin the wheel of digital hatred forever, until someone on the other side of the screen hits the factory reset button?